We're about to tell you who it will be with, where it will be, and with what object it will happen.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A protracted political fight over immigration enforcement funding ended a short time ago with President Trump's signature to a bill. He signed the $70 billion package this morning.
I'm thrilled to sign the Secure America Act to immediately and fully fund the Department of Homeland Security through the end of my term.
It caps months of wrangling between the GOP and Democrats who aggressively campaigned for sweeping enforcement changes after 2 federal agents killed 2 U.S. citizens in Minnesota. President Trump says Iran is taking too long to negotiate a peace deal with the U.S. and warns on social media the Islamic Republic will pay the price. Trump separately told Fox News he might order new strikes on Iran's power plants and bridges. The U.S. military had attacked Iranian targets following the crash of an Apache helicopter that was patrolling the Strait of Hormuz. The pilots were rescued. Iran retaliated. It targeted U.S. military bases in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain in response to the American airstrikes. The strikes followed again the downing of a U.S. attack helicopter. NPR's Jana Raff has details.
Jordan says it shot down 5 Iranian missiles fired toward Azraq in eastern Jordan. The U.S. military has a major presence in a Jordanian airbase in the desert there. Jordan said shrapnel from the interceptions caused no damage or casualties. Iran said it destroyed U.S. fighter jet hangars and a command and control center at the base. The U.S. military did not comment. Iran also targeted a U.S. airbase in Kuwait. And in Bahrain, where the U.S. Fifth Fleet is based, sirens sounded while the government urged residents to seek shelter. Jana Raff, NPR News, Beirut.
A wartime spike in gasoline prices has pushed inflation to its highest level in more than 3 years. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest cost of living data from the Labor Department out today.
Consumer prices in May were up 4.2% from a year ago. That's the biggest annual increase since April of 2023. Prices rose by 0.5% between April and May, with energy costs accounting for more than 60% of that monthly increase. Stripping out volatile food and energy costs, so-called core inflation was 2.9% for the 12 months ending in May, a slightly larger annual increase than the previous month. Gasoline prices have moderated in recent days, but are still about $1.17 a gallon higher than they were before the U.S. and Israel launched their war on Iran. AAA says the average price of regular gas is about $4.15 a gallon. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
And on Wall Street, investors are reacting with the Dow down 581 points. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Look out, police will be out in force today for a traffic enforcement initiative along one of Houston's busiest highways. Mayor John Whitmire says they're targeting speeders and aggressive drivers.
I'm pleased to let the community know that HPD, partnering with the Department of Public Safety and Constable Terri Langford, are going to have a traffic surge, traffic enforcement along I-10 from Highway 10 downtown to Highway 6 this Wednesday and Thursday, June 10th and 11th.
Similar traffic crackdowns in the past have resulted in hundreds of tickets being written. Houston area Congressman Christian Menefee has been appointed to the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. This committee holds the primary responsibility for congressional scrutiny of the Trump administration, including its handling of the Epstein files. Menefee campaigned for Congress on a platform of holding President Trump accountable through increased investigations. His powers to launch investigations or pressure the committee to do so are minimal as a member of the minority party, but that could change if Democrats gain control of the House of Representatives this fall. Taking a look at sports, the NBA Finals resume tonight. The San Antonio Spurs looking to get even in their series with the New York Knicks. Tip-off is at 7:30 Central Time. Game 5 will be in San Antonio on Saturday. The Astros bombed in Los Angeles last night, 10-1. Houston wraps up their visit to Anaheim tonight at 8:30. And taking a check of your weather, it's going to be mostly sunny today with a high of 91, a heat index of 101. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 77 degrees and a very slight chance for showers or thunderstorms. Right now, mostly cloudy, 86 degrees on the UH campus. Get more news and information. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston.
And hello. It's Ernie Manous with you today, and sitting in the guest host seat, I'm very excited. We have Nicole Ellis with us. Hello.
Hello, Ernie. It's so nice to be here with you.
You've been here before on that side of the table. You've been here as a guest.
Yes.
But for folks who are not familiar with you or your work, fill them in a little bit about who Nicole is.
Ooh, okay. Not intense at all.
This is a job interview. Please present yourself.
Well, I am a fellow journalist and filmmaker. I got started out at CNN and then went on to the Washington Post, where I was there, where I created their first digital documentary series called Should I Freeze My Eggs? So it follows women's fertility journeys, self-driven. So I actually covered my own experience of, trying to navigate as I was turning 30. What do I do? How do I family plan without necessarily all the pieces in there yet? Yeah. And then went on to cover lots of different national topics there, and then went on to PBS NewsHour, where I was their very first and only digital anchor. So I covered everything, you name it, for PBS NewsHour on their digital platforms.
So all these little cameras that are facing at you and us streaming live on YouTube, none of that throws you. Oh,
no, not at all.
Hey, smiley
y'all.
Faces at the camera.
Breaking, what is it, the fourth wall?
Fourth wall.
Hey, let's talk.
We are multi-platform, as we mention every day. You can listen to us live, as many of you are doing right now on the radio. You can also stream us live on YouTube, where you can watch the show. You can also get the podcast of the show. A full version of the show comes out after the show, but also a commuter cut. And those are wherever podcasts are available. The commuter cut is about a 40-minute best of each day's show. And I like to think they have trouble cutting it down. I think some days they have trouble filling 40 minutes for the best of.
Ernie, you're so dynamic. How could we ever cut away from you?
And that is why Nicole is here today. No, I was thinking about this. We've been hanging out this morning and chatting, and I was thinking about, happiness and joy, and how I always believe some people have that innately in them, and other people may, when left to their own devices, may come to a less enthusiastic position in life as a general starting point. And I find you as a very bubbly, joyous person. And I think it's interesting whenever anyone in this profession has that outlook, because so often we deal with so many difficult and hard to cover topics. But then on the alternate side of it, I think, well, it's because we bring that innate ability to find joy in life that we can cover these difficult issues and still continue through without it dragging us down. Your thoughts?
I completely agree. I will say I am originally from Houston, so I'm a little biased, but I love traveling. And what I attribute, and I studied anthropology in undergrad. And so this sort of curiosity mixed with adventure, I have found, I did a trip around the world in my 20s. And everyone asks, oh, do you speak other languages? And I'm like, I speak in smiles and Southern hospitality. So I think there's also
one of the best languages to know.
Yes. So I think there's something about curiosity and sort of wanting to process things that makes journalism so pleasurable. If you enjoy it and see it that way, other people, come into the profession for different reasons. But I think there's this piece of it for me, and I imagine for you, where, even if it's a difficult topic, kind of like picking away at it and coming to understand it and kind of facing whatever it is, whether it's a positive story or an unfortunate one, actually dealing with it has its own sort of level of catharsis and also joy in terms of, investigating or exploring something and not kind of, shying away from it.
I think understanding, that's the word for me. I'm always trying to understand. Trying to understand people in general, what motivates them, why they're motivated for these things. And so it's easy to look at a story and not fall to a partisan side of it, but to understand the facts of the story. And that fascinates me. It's kind of like a little mystery unraveling every single time we tell a story. What made them do this? Why did they think in the moment that was right? I think back to a lot of performers who say, or actors, when they say they play a villain, they always have to find the humanity in the villain because the villain doesn't think they're the villain. They have...
Exactly.
And so that's, I think, how we look at a lot of stories, not to say people are villains, but there's motivations behind them. Speaking of villains, though, on today's show, we're going to be talking with one of the stars of Clue. When it comes to who's the villain, who did the thing. Clue, the famous board game, and then the movie that a lot of people grew up on. Well, they're doing it live on stage, and so one of the actors is going to be here from that. We're also going to take a look at, we've talked about this a lot on the show, is the detransitioning clinic that's going to open at Texas Children's that came from a lawsuit that pushed them to do that. It was part of the settlement. We're going to find out the full story behind that. Later in the show, we'll also be talking about Juneteenth and how Buffalo Soldiers Museum is going to be celebrating that with a really cool film retrospect. I don't know if it's a retrospect as much a presentation of a grouping of short films, and a documentarian will be here with us to talk about that, and so much more. But as always, we start with the headlines of the day. Take us in, Nicole.
Absolutely. So a jury in Collin County, Texas, found Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder in the death of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet just outside of Dallas after deliberating for about 3 hours. Now, the jury only had to consider the single charge of first-degree murder. This case, Ernie, has it's drawn a lot of national attention, in part because there were over 20 prosecution witnesses, many of them who were teenagers and classmates of Austin Metcalf, who had emotional testimonies in court last week. Anthony, who's now 19, was sentenced to 35 years in prison, the jury rejected his claims of self-defense during a confrontation with Austin Metcalf in the stadium bleachers last year. Most people who testified were students who described a heated exchange over Anthony's refusal in a rainy spring day to leave a tent that belonged to Metcalf's team. Since Anthony was a minor at the time of Metcalf's death, the death penalty was off of the table. But I'm also curious to hear what your thoughts are on the verdict. So please call or text us at 713-440-8870.
I guess I would start with, which surprised me. I'd been thinking about this story all morning and looking into it, but it wasn't until you read it that all of a sudden I was like, ooh. And my ooh moment was when it was a single charge of first-degree murder. And my problem here is that my understanding of first-degree murder is premeditation and deliberation. So premeditation meant there was, as far as I know, there was the thought to harm someone, to kill someone. That's first-degree murder. I believe from what I have read and what I have seen that, yes, this scuffle happened and he ended up stabbing this other gentleman and killing him. But was it out of in-the-moment aggression, or was it first-degree murder? Had he intended to murder the other guy? I don't know enough about the case to know what's there. I do believe that a shove should not be met with a stabbing. I think that a shove should be met, if you want, with another shove. But the escalation of it to the other student being stabbed, I have trouble there. But I do have trouble with the concept of first-degree murder. Do I think he laid in wait and thought about it? Now, if you're a legal mind out there listening right now, and I'm confused on first-degree murder, and you look at it differently, that if just in the absolute moment of it, he decided to cause the harm, is that still first degree or is that second degree? Your thoughts?
I feel like there are so many different social and sociocultural dynamics at play here that it's kind of created a it's become a proxy for so many things at once. So there's also there's so many factors. So 20 witnesses is a lot. 20 emotional testimonies is a lot. And we're also talking about other teenagers. So, because Karmelo was in Austin Metcalf's, his team's tent, most of these people are people who grew up with or knew Austin Metcalf or and at the very least were his teammates. So you've got this factor of, Karmelo Anthony not being in a space that is his own necessarily. Then you've also got this piece where Austin has a twin brother, and they're both larger than Anthony Karmelo. So I'm sure the jury and both the defense and the prosecution are trying to convey these different nuances and dynamics of trying to put jurors in the position of imagining what it must have been like from all these different perspectives. Right. And not to mention, race. Race is a factor in what created such a charged response to trying to navigate something that's also just devastating because it's kids, it's teenagers. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think, whether or not how it factors into being first-degree murder, I think I don't necessarily feel like I have a good enough, I can't fully wrap my head around or wrap, my opinion around that entirely. But I do feel like in the ways that we talked about how, journalism and probing something can have some catharsis, the verdict is not going to give anyone really the catharsis, right? It doesn't resolve the feelings that this brings up from so many understandable perspectives.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you mentioned the race, because when I read up on the story, I did not know the race of those involved. I didn't know who they were. And so it plays into it, but I wonder, did Karmelo feel his life was threatened when your teenager's having a scuffle? That's the part where I don't.
Right.
And you can't be in his mind at the moment. But as the mother of Austin said, and I have her quote, and it really just struck me in a testimony. Anthony's mother asked the jury for mercy during the sentencing. Metcalf's mother addressed Anthony directly, saying, "You may have just been given a sentence of 35 years. You should feel lucky because I've been sentenced to a life without my son." Yeah. I'm pretty much a pacifist in all aspects of my life. I can't even really get in a good fight at work. So I am not good about this, but I feel like the escalation of it is concerning to me, and I am surprised, but I'll go back to where I started. First-degree murder, I didn't listen to all the testimony. I haven't read all the testimony. That seems a bit harsh, but it was the only choice that the jury had, which I also think is an interesting point in it.
Right. And, there's all these other kind of nuances of what happened that day where, the reports indicate that Karmelo Anthony said that he did it then and there, and then also asked if Austin was okay, if Austin Metcalf was okay, conveying maybe that there wasn't necessarily this intent to commit murder, and that that he's a kid, that he's asking a lot of questions in an environment where he is also uniquely in a situation where he's could be, now we know, facing a life sentence or 35 years in jail, but he's a kid asking like, well, is he okay? Like, yeah. I mean, and so it's just it's like I tend to kind of agree with you that not only is it a very strong sentence and also a complicated and kind of hard judgment to be asking a jury to make, but also again that these are kids who's, as we were talking about before we went on air, like whose frontal lobes aren't fully developed and are making impulsive, right, whether it is in defense of your life or otherwise, decisions. It's hard, and it's also something that everyone involved is going to have to grieve and is actively grieving right now.
713-440-8870. Share your thoughts and opinions on what we're talking about. You can call or text. We have Stacy from Atascocita on the line. Stacy, what are you thinking?
As an attorney, I don't practice criminal law, but I was concerned that there is this concept in criminal law referred to as imperfect self-defense. Mm-hmm. And it seems as though it's applicable in this case. He overreacted in a self-defense scenario, and I'm curious as to the arguments that were presented by the defense attorney. because it seems as though 35 years in an imperfect self-defense case is a bit much on the sentencing, and that the fact that he was convicted on the first-degree charge, even though manslaughter was on the table, it seems as though this case was over-prosecuted to me.
When you say manslaughter was on the table in how they were going to move forward with the case or what the jury could choose, because our understanding is the jury only had to consider a single charge of first-degree murder.
I thought manslaughter was included as a lesser offense as well.
Because see, that makes more sense to me. I would think a manslaughter charge, yes, I can see that more clearly. Because help us, and I don't mean to turn this into an interview of you just because you called to share your opinion. Right. I'm just curious if you can talk to me a little bit about the legal definition of premeditation.
So premeditation means that the intent was formed at the time the act began. Like it would have been an act to actually commit murder. So it has to be set in the mind of the offender at the time the act begins. And so that's why I thought an imperfect self-defense claim could have been made by the defense. And I haven't followed in detail to kind of see what was argued by his legal defense team. But so the burden for self-defense is on the defendant to prove. And so I would have talked about, and again, I don't practice criminal law. I'm pulling all of this from my understanding, having taken criminal law in law school.
But Stacey, I'll tell you, you're closer to the answers than we are, so continue.
So I would have argued that, yes, he overreacted, but he had a legal claim for self-defense. And in that scenario, you kind of gear towards manslaughter, right? Because he overreacted in a self-defense scenario. But so, in some of the reports, they were saying that it was a murder in the first, and then it was also manslaughter on the table.
All right, we'll have to look into that. We're going to look into that and see which one was there. But it's interesting because if manslaughter was also an option for the jury, then I'm more concerned about this decision. But then again, as we have said, we haven't read through all the testimony and have all the information in front of us. But thank you very much for sharing with us, Stacey, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I did see something come here that says, and by here I mean over in the YouTube chat, Braden says, what matters is the distinction between murder and manslaughter is intent. If he intended to harm the victim, even in the heat of passion, it's murder. So I think as we clarify self-defense, here we have another one that came in. In the U.S., self-defense law does not apply to people of color such as African-American people, Mexican-American people, and only to white Caucasian people use self-defense laws. Interesting point of view.
Well, I think there's another piece here which Karmelo Anthony has the right to, which was just to not testify. And so I'm curious to hear what our viewers and listeners think about about that piece of things. If he did testify or if he did take the stand, if that would have moved the needle or not, because we hear from so many other people here, right? But we don't hear from Karmelo Anthony. So, there's the piece of whether or not this was premeditated, all these other things. But in reality, the only sort of, bits of information that the jury was pulling from was from other people, not from Karmelo Anthony himself. Right. So, there's also inherent risk in that as well. But in reality, we don't really know what was going on in his head because we didn't hear from him.
There's a lot of talk about the surveillance footage. We were even talking about that earlier. And the only footage that we understand does exist that I can't seem to find has been released to the public was surveillance from a far distance where you can see people encounter, you can see perceived a shove, as I understand it, and you can see a rejoining together. At the trial, they had enhanced video, which means that a computer generated refined the parts that it could from the pixels. I assume that's reliable. We have not seen that footage and what that shows, but there is no question that a knife was used and that a person was stabbed and that person died. So let's go back to the phone call, 713. I said a lot of words. I don't know. I said a lot of content. 713-440-8870. Doug from the Woodlands is on the line. Doug, what do you think?
Yes, sir. My only comment was this was a school event that someone took a lock blade knife to that you could actually commit this crime with. Why do you do that if there's not some intent there? I just it's if you took it into a school classroom, you would be expelled. You take it to an event like that. To me, it's the same scenario. Why do you take it if there's no intent of using it? And I'll leave that rest of that up to y'all. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Doug, thank you for sharing with us. Once again, goes back to intent, and it's not illegal to now, I don't know what the policy is at the school. I don't know in after-hours events. I don't know the policy of being able to have something like that on you. But you know, who knows what the decisions were and what was made in that moment. The fact is, two lives were ruined. One is in jail or in prison for 35 years, less with parole, and the other is dead. So, you know, however you slice it, something very sad happened in this situation.
Yeah, you know, I have a lot of empathy for both of these kids. I remember my 17-year-old self, and she was not as smart as the me I am today. So, you know, in the less than 35 years since then, it's really scary to think about how a sentence that long and for so many years of your life can affect, you know, your ability to reintegrate into society or to overcome, you know, missteps in your youth. Not to call this a misstep, and you know, not to minimize this at all. But it is really tough. It is really tough. Not to mention Austin Metcalf's mother, who, you know, has a life sentence of no longer having her son of grief.
There's no joy on either side in this story, and there is no full healing. But it's up to you. Do you think justice was done or not? Feel free to continue to share with us at 713-440-8870. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Texas Tribune reporter Terri Langford will be here to discuss her investigation into Texas Children's Hospital's Detransition Center, right here on Hello Houston on News 88.7.
PBS drama on HPM+.
The twists you didn't.
Meet Theo Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
All your favorite shows.
Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs. The next chapter is waiting.
On HPM Plus.
It's time for another installment of our periodic survey of new and recent releases of sacred choral and organ recordings. We'll celebrate these recordings on the next with heart and voice, including music of Marc-Antoine Charpentier, Eleanor Daly, Daniel Naggs, and others. I'm Peter Dubois, and I hope you'll join me for this musical survey.
You can hear it tonight at 11 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from downtown Houston. Moving forward, with more people back in the office, more visitors every week, and over $1 million grant dollars invested into small businesses and storefronts. More at downtownhouston.org.
Support comes from Chariot Energy, a member of Hanwha Energy USA, a retail electricity provider offering simple, sustainable energy plans to residential and commercial customers. Details and plan options available at chariotenergy.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, presenting the Juneteenth celebration at Bayou Bend. Guests are invited to a family-centered program in honor of the Juneteenth holiday, June 14th. More at mfah.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person, video conference, and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com.
now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Nicole Ellis.
Texas Children's Hospital plans to launch a new detransition clinic later this year as part of a settlement with the Texas Attorney General's office. The clinic will offer services including mental health care and endocrinology support. To help us understand what's in the agreement, and why Texas Children's Hospital was ordered to create this clinic in the first place, we're joined by Terri Langford, health service reporter from the Texas Tribune. Terri, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
If folks would like to join the conversation, it's easy to do. Just give us a call, 713-440-8870. I guess we'll start at the beginning. What exactly is this new detransition clinic that Texas Children's Hospital has agreed to create, and how does the hospital define its purpose?
That's a lot to unpack right there. Right now, the Attorney General's office had an investigation that started in 2023 into whether or not Texas Children's was still offering transgender services to minors, at what point, and whether they were billing wrongfully or incorrectly Medicaid. This went on for a couple of years. There was never a formal lawsuit against Texas Children's, but the hospital agreed to settle by offering to set up this clinic that would offer services to anyone who wanted to seek services, who had transition, who wanted to detransition. It's supposed to offer counseling. It's supposed to offer any kind of services anyone seeking such services would come to them for. Texas Children's has said they've already offered these types of services, but they are just formalizing it into one clinic.
Let me just clarify one part in it for people listening too. If the investigation was into, and correct my word usage if it's wrong here, fraudulent billing to social services or whomever, with this agreement, is there a preassumption that there may have been something fraudulent in the way billing was happening, or is it simply that as an organization, Texas Children would rather not have to deal with any of this and just agreed to a settlement so that they could move on before it went any further?
Texas Children's has made it really clear they have done nothing against the law. That's all they'll say. So I think it's the latter here, where they wanted to put this behind them. They've agreed to pay $10 million to the state, and they've agreed to set up this clinic.
Clarify one more point in that then. What are they paying $10 million for? What is the penalty they're paying money for?
They are not, we're not exactly sure at this point, but I think it's to settle if there was any incorrect billing. They have not addressed that issue, though. So we don't know yet. And a couple of things about this settlement. Since it was announced by the Attorney General's office on May 15th, we've gotten a term sheet about the settlement, but we do not have a final settlement. We expect this clinic to be set up by the end of the year, but we don't have a real specific time peg yet.
Hi, Terri. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm curious about, so I believe in your reporting, as we've discussed somewhat, that Texas Children's initially put out a statement saying, look, we're not doing this because we necessarily agree. We just want to settle this so that we can avoid having to incur additional legal fees, et cetera, et cetera. But I believe a part of the sheet that describes the settlement, it also says that they will be removing press releases. And so I'm curious, do you see a relationship between these two things? And if so, what are you kind of seeing or reading in the tea leaves here?
Well, I can only go with what they've told us and what the Attorney General's office has told us. The Attorney General's office, we've asked for we've had more questions to the Attorney General's office and wanted to talk to them, but they have so far declined. What I can only tell you what I've reported so far. Is that go ahead.
No, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It's just that we've also seen since then another clinic this week has also agreed with the Justice Department to set up a similar type clinic. That's Cleveland Clinic, and it's a signed agreement not to perform any more medical treatment, including puberty blockers or hormone treatments of minors.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think you make a great point as three journalists sit at the table discussing your incredible reporting that really, I want to hear what our listeners have to say about that and these very interesting pieces of information about, what was said and now what can and can't be said or has to be removed from their site. So please call in, message in,
713-440-8870. I had heard tossed around the idea that we say, yes, we will put up this clinic. And by we, I don't mean that Texas Children's actually said this, but the concept. But we can slow roll this, and what actually we need to do, we can kind of do a minimal of what they're asking for. What exactly do they have to set up and by when? What do we know?
We know that once a final settlement is agreed upon between both parties, that they will agree to an effective date of the settlement. And then 90 days after that settlement, this clinic needs to be set up. They also have to advertise it on their website. They also have to create a donor link. So if people want to donate to the clinic specifically, they can do so.
So I guess, and if you can give me any more light, and I know a lot of this is still evolving as we talk, is there a limit of how many professionals have to be involved with it? Can they put a single person at a desk in a small room and say that's the clinic? Or does it have to have a psychologist attached to it, an endocrinologist attached to it, a pediatrician attached? What do we know physically about
it? It doesn't have a specific number, but it does say that it has to offer all of these services. I doubt very seriously that it would be, putting sort of one person there at a desk. It sounds to me like they're going to have to create some sort of space and organize it in a particular office, and they must provide all of these services, whether it's primary care, fertility counseling, psychiatry, and psychotherapy, endocrinology, as you mentioned.
So another piece of this that I found so interesting that I learned from your reporting is in addition to the donations that you mentioned, that they'll have to be able to collect donations, but also that that the Texas Children's will have to have a list. While they have said that they will absolutely abide by HIPAA laws and not be, sharing that list with anyone, that's still a pretty bold public statement to say that you will be keeping documentation of potential, recipients of this care. And beyond that, your reporting also talks about the demographics of people that typically do seek detransition care and, the rate at which that happens. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. The gender list, the potential gender affirming care patient list caught our eye, and we've asked a lot of questions about it. We don't have any more detail than that settlement term sheet that we got, but basically they are supposed to keep a list of a quote potential gender affirming care patients. It does not say that they share it with the state, and Texas Children's would only say that would violate all kinds of HIPAA laws, and they seem to indicate that it would not be shared, although it's not specifically stated in there. As far as the demographic, detransitioning does occur. It's very rare. It's very rare that someone who has undergone gender transition regrets it to a point to want to detransition.
Take me into this a little bit further in the fact that if there is no use of the clinic, they create this clinic and then nobody shows up, what is their obligation to continue this? They already say they provide these services if somebody were to request or desire this. So they're not blocking this care already. To put all these resources or potential resources behind it, and the advantage taken of it is so small, what do we know about the settlement there then?
We don't know anything. This is sort of this is such an unusual settlement. It's the first one in the country. We've never seen this before. I would imagine, I can't speak for Texas Children, but I would imagine they may have some people, it may end up being that they have a list of staff, but they're also treating other patients for other things. It's hard to imagine a clinic set up specifically for this when there is such a patient load out there, or has been in the past. That doesn't mean it couldn't change in the future, but because this is sort of untraveled territory, if you will, it's really unclear how this would work exactly.
For people who look at this and say it's much ado about nothing, they already provide these services anyway, to put together a clinic, I'm putting air quotes up there, that say, okay, we have these services. There they are. And if you need them, you can have them. We already provide that service anyway. This is a big show of absolutely no teeth to it behind the fact that we're out $10 million that could have been used in care somewhere else. Your reaction to that kind of an argument?
It's a good argument. I don't disagree with it, but again, we're just going to have to see what the final settlement looks like. I'm hoping that we'll get better specifics on exactly what the blueprint is for this. But as we can see, there is an effort by the Justice Department to see more of these type of agreements elsewhere. So we're just going to have to see how all of these sort of pediatric hospitals are having to comply with this. And I think we're going to see it elsewhere, not just Cleveland, not just Texas Children's.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's such an interesting financial situation, because from what I gather, gender affirming care is extremely expensive, cost prohibitive in many cases, particularly in a place where the ability to do gender affirming care on insurance is under question, if not outright no longer available. So who can seek detransition care, and also if you can't afford to transition, how are you going to, how does detransitioning work, or how does that work? And what happens to that donation money? Should there be a situation where there are a considerable number of donors, people donating to this fund, but no patients? Especially considering the fact that there's a database. Who wants to be, are there people who are going to want to be in a database being documented for, with that kind of documentation of your medical history?
I think these are all terrific questions. They're questions that we have, and I really wish I could come to you with better answers, but we are asking these both to, everybody involved, and trying to get as much information as possible. I'm really hoping that a final settlement agreement becomes public, because we have a request for that when it comes out. I would like to know the answer to this, because it does raise questions on how much resource for such a small population. I'm sure Texas Children's could have spent $10 million on a lot of different things, but obviously they knew this would be a hard legal fight, and they decided to put it behind them.
Let me ask, and I don't mean silver lining as in taking a stand on this, but could this be reworked into a concept of they have a gender clinic that is then applied both directions for folks that are looking for gender care? Can they work that with what the Attorney General's office is asking. As we offer these services, therefore we also offer those services, and that we are a service for the person no matter which direction they are going. Could that, or is that too hard to make that happen?
I think the answer is no, because Texas has joined something like more than 24 states in outline gender-affirming care for minors. So that I don't see it going both ways.
And last question, the chilling effect of all of this when the government gets involved with what the medical practice, what the medical society does. Should we be worried?
Well, I think in Texas, we've seen in the last few years, not just in transgender healthcare, but reproductive healthcare, we have seen doctors go to other states. And, we're seeing a loss of expertise, and they are going elsewhere. So it is, and we've seen families with transgender children move out of the state. We're probably going to see more of that. It's something that, while it's still being taught in medical schools, it's not going to be applied here.
Terri, thank you so much for sharing what you know so far. I know you'll stay on this story as we get more details, and I hope you'll come back and share them with us as we know more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terri Langford is the health services reporter for the Texas Tribune. Okay, switching gears. Coming up, nobody is safe at Body Manor as Clue comes to the Hobby Center. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Gamola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Gamola to learn more about his ride.
Or their children.
I'm Kai Risdal, current policy, future problems. We'll have that story, the rest of the day's business news, and the numbers from Wall Street next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace. It's coming up tonight at 6:30.
This week in This American Life, Pablo has big dreams. He very recently started painting portraits of members of Congress.
Were those Mitch McConnells, in your opinion, were they good?
I can't think of a single Mitch McConnell I ever did that was good.
Undeterred, he tries everything he can think of to get his work hung inside the Capitol for generations. What happens? That's this week.
This American Life tonight at 10 p.m.
More to watch, more to discover, more to learn. HPM Plus streams the best of PBS and Houston Public Media. Kids, drama, science, local, all in one free app. Go live with channels like TV8, Create, PBS Kids, NHK World, and more, streaming around the clock. And PBS members get full access to past seasons with Passport. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs. It's all waiting for you.
On HPM Plus. Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Theater Under the Stars, with a 2026-27 season of Broadway musicals at the Hobby Center. Subscription packages for 3 or more shows are available. Information at tuts.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Nicole Ellis.
If you're a fan of murder mysteries or whodunit, chances are you were likely introduced to the genre through the classic board game Clue, or even its fan favorite 1985 cult film. I can't believe it was 1985. But what if the mystery and its iconic characters were transported to the stage? Well, wonder no more. Clue, live on stage, has everything fans of the franchise love. From the mansion to the 6 mysterious guests, and of course, the murder that must be solved. Who did it? In what room? With what weapon? Well, to tell us more, Adam Brett is with us. He's playing Wadsworth, the butler, in the national tour of Clue. Adam, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I want to start this off by saying, before we even talk about the show, I was fortunate enough to be there last night to see it. And let me tell you, you give them every dollar's worth of talent they're paying you for. You are electric on stage, and I don't know, you must sleep well every night.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ernie. That means a lot. And you guys were a great crowd last night. It was a blast to perform for you all.
You know, I guess the challenge for it would be that so many people know the movie. And the movie, even though when it first came out, was not the hugest box office success, time has been on its side, and it has become part of so many people's lives and growing up experiences. I'm guessing the challenge is not to be Tim Curry, to go in there and be your version of Wadsworth, but you're performing to an audience who really has a connection to the film in most parts, I would assume. What's the challenge there as an actor for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always wanted to be Tim Curry ever since I was a kid, and I still do. But it's kind of a double-edged sword here, because fans come in and see the movie, that love the movie and see the play. They have expectations of what to expect, and you know, we honor so much of the film, and of course the board game, and we make it our own, and so. You know, the pressure is we hope to really respect the film and give the fans what they want, but at the same time, give them a new twist on something that is just a beloved classic. So making it our own and paying homage and honoring the film's hilarity is kind of a gift, really.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts is when they show the blueprint of the house at one point and they hold it up and you're like, it's the board game! I love that moment. Not to give anything away, and trust me, I didn't ruin anything there with that.
No.
Okay, you ready for my trivia question?
Yeah, I heard you've got a good...
I got a good one. Let's see if you know the answer, Adam, okay? So,
let's see.
Body Manor in the movie, beautiful set. I mean, some of the antiques, I understand, Teddy Roosevelt's estate loaned to the movie to use for that. Do you know what happened to the set after the movie?
I have no clue.
It's
on our stage. No, I don't know. What's the answer?
It was used by Dynasty as the Carlisle Hotel in the final season of Dynasty. The balcony that Alexis and Dex go over in the final episode is the balcony that's there in the house. They bought the whole set. So if you watch, if you watch any clips from the last season of Dynasty at Carlisle, you'll be like, That's Body Manor.
That's Body Manor.
There you go. Wow. There's my trivia for the day. I said it was useless and nobody would care but me, but I was going to ask that question.
I think our listeners care.
Yeah. Did you grow up on the film itself? Did you play the board game as a child? Did you come back to it when you found out you were cast?
Yeah, Clue has been in my life since I was a kid. So there was one holiday season where my mom, who's so healthy and so great now, but she was in the hospital during the holidays, and we were kind of nervous and scared, and a way to get personal 2 minutes into an interview, but my dad bought all these gifts for me and my brother, and one of the gifts was this board game Clue, because he grew up playing the board game himself. So it kind of got us through the scary time in our lives when we were kids. And it's been this touchstone. So a few years later, I was introduced to the movie and said, oh, this is so cool. Oh, I recognize that guy from Muppet Treasure Island and this woman from Young Frankenstein. And so it has just been ingrained in me. And I was like a theater kid growing up. So I remember watching the movie and being like, this would make a really great play. So all these years later, here I am getting to do it. And you know, I revisit the movie every once in a while. I mean, it's been a very long time since I played the board game, but I do the play every night, so I can't get enough of it.
Well, it's funny you say it's been a while since you played it. Last year, I love a good bargain, so I was somewhere at a store, and they had the Christmas things all marked down, and they had the Grinch Clue, and I had to buy it. So at Christmas this year, all of my friends, we had to get together and play the Grinch Clue. And we decided we didn't like the Grinch Clue. We had to go back to the original Clue.
Yeah.
But just it shows how ingrained it is in everything. There are so many different versions of it out there. We all know it. And the fun of playing the game is still there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Clue is in our zeitgeist and has endured all these years. I mean, the movie just celebrated its 40th anniversary last year.
Oh my God!
And we've been playing Clue, for decades and decades. So this is a touchstone in our humanity.
Yeah.
I come from a family of performers, and so I'm curious to hear if you have any pre-performance rituals or practices, or if you're in a new city, like what you do to kind of like get ready for the stage.
Yeah, well, I love to be consistent. I am like so regimented in my routine. So, my whole day kind of leads up to the show. You have to preserve all your energy for the evening, which is kind of, a weird thing to do. Just, I like to exert my energy in the middle of the day, not at the end. But, I try to stay active and healthy. I go on a lot of runs for the cardio. This is a show where we're constantly running through Body Manor for an hour and 15 minutes. So to keep my heart rate up and my breath support going and is crucial. But again, I warm up right before the show, like 45 minutes of stretching as many muscles as I can, including this muscle, my voice here, to really stretch and almost to feel like elastic on stage. The more elastic I feel, the more that I can, the zanier and the faster it can feel on stage. And for the audience, I mean, it's a rush. I mean, it's just like a 85-minute rush of pure excitement.
I cannot wait to check it out.
I would say that when I heard how short it was time-wise, I thought, oh, it's only 85 minutes. And then I saw what you were doing, and I thought, oh, thank God. Adam would die if he had to do this for 2 hours every night. We had a text come in that asked, are there multiple endings to the play like there were to the movie?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of our most asked questions and one of my favorite questions. So for fans of the movie, one of the greatest things about that film is the multiple endings. And so for us, like the rest of the play, we honor the movie, very intensely and intentionally. And so the ending, you'll see there are twists and turns and honor that kind of 3-part ending, but we make it our own.
Yeah.
You did a great job of answering that without answering that.
Well, he answered the part
because I can't spoil anything. It's a murder mystery, If I spoil
I'm here for
anything,
it. I love it.
I know we're almost out of time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Treasure Island. And you really have an affinity for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pirate at heart. I grew up watching all the movies and reading the book, and I created my own adaptation of it with my friends from school, and we created our own theater company, Dartboard Productions, and it made its off-Broadway debut 2 years ago at the Center at West Park, which is like the most beautiful venue in all of New York City. And I'm really proud of that piece, and I hope it will endure. And if any producers are interested in producing a pretty epic pirate play, let me know.
Well, Adam, I get to be with you folks again on Saturday night after Saturday night's performance. I'm going to be doing the talk back with it, and I hope you'll join us as one of the cast members who hangs out with us to talk with the audience. If you're going to see the show Saturday night, stick around for the talk back afterwards. Adam Brett, thank you very much. What a joy talking to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Adam is playing Wadsworth in the national tour of Clue. Clue is currently at the Hobby Center through Sunday, June 14th. For more information, visit hobbycenter.org. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue with today's top headlines, and we're also going to look at the state of Florida suing OpenAI. That's coming up in the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Pearland, a community dedicated to growing innovative businesses and inspiring families, offering a diverse workforce, modern infrastructure, and schools, parks, and more. Details at pearlandedc.com. Pearland, innovation lives here.
A mostly sunny day today will warm up to around 90, 91, somewhere in there. Currently it's 88. This is your NPR station, KUHF. Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, Houston City Council is set to vote on the city's next budget, and one of the biggest debates is over whether to implement a $5 trash fee for residents. We'll discuss this and more as we continue diving into today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm guest host Nicole Ellis. We'll hear from University of Houston law professor Nikolas Guggenberger, ready to talk about Florida's lawsuit against OpenAI and the legal questions it raises about the future of AI.
Plus, documentarian Gordon S. Williams and Buffalo Soldiers National Museum's Dr. Michelle Tovar joins us to talk about a Juneteenth film event celebrating the stories, struggles, and triumphs of Black communities in Texas.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text at 713-440-8870.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's signature seals $70 billion in funding to the Department of Homeland Security for ICE and Border Patrol operations. With a stroke of his pen today, Trump ended a 115-day standoff between Democrats and Republicans over immigration policy, intensified earlier this year when federal agents shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens in Minneapolis. At the White House today, Trump also took reporters' questions about the latest military strikes against Iran. Trump's threatened more attacks over Iran's refusal to meet U.S. demands for a peace deal and over Monday's downing of an Apache helicopter.
We're going to be attacking them very hard.
You're resuming bombing?
Yeah, well, we are. Based on the helicopter, I guess we have the right to do that.
Iran responded to yesterday's U.S. strikes with retaliatory attacks against U.S. bases in Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait. NPR's Franco Ordonez has more.
Mona Yakubian, a former State Department official who now works at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, says Trump was basically in a no-win situation.
If the U.S. doesn't respond, that will be portrayed as weakness. If, on the other hand, the U.S. responds as it should, that opens the way for further escalation.
It also makes it harder to reach a deal that the president had said earlier this week was potentially 2 or 3 days away. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
War-related rising gas prices pushed inflation up last month to its highest level in 3 years. Government figures showing a 4.2% increase in consumer prices from May 2025 to May of this year. Prices have outpaced wages for several months. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates is appearing before members of the House Oversight Committee. The billionaire is facing questions behind closed doors about his relationship with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. NPR's Ava Berger has details.
Lawmakers have said they are interested in Gates' years-long relationship with Epstein, if Gates knew anything about Epstein's crimes, and who else was in Epstein's orbit. Gates is mentioned hundreds of times in the Department of Justice's Epstein files. An email indicates that Gates traveled on Epstein's private plane, and there are photos of him with Epstein. Gates is one in a litany of connections the disgraced financier made with rich and powerful men. According to the released emails, Gates met with Epstein multiple times after Epstein's 2008 conviction for sex crimes that involved minors. Gates has denied seeing or participating in Epstein's crimes. Survivors of Epstein's abuse say they will continue to fight for justice as the investigation continues. Ava Berger, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Harris County is preparing for large crowds as the 2026 FIFA World Cup celebrations get underway. News 88.7's Sarah Grunow reports.
In a recent update about Harris County's preparations for the major sporting event, County Judge Lena Hidalgo said that the Emergency Management Department will be activated throughout the months of June and July.
We're going to be activated even when there's not a game to level 3 activation, and when there is a game, we will be at a higher level of activation.
The county's preparations will also mirror previous planning for hurricanes. Hidalgo also said that she's not alarmed about the prospect of Ebola in Harris County as the World Cup gets underway. Harris County Public Health has also created a dashboard to monitor potential cases of Ebola ahead of the event. As of Tuesday, the department was monitoring 17 travelers that may have been exposed to the virus. I'm Sarah Gruno, News 88.7.
Brazoria County Commissioners Court has passed a resolution outlining regulations for any future data centers built in the county. The resolution, which passed unanimously, includes guidelines requiring any new data center to complete independent impact assessments to protect residents, their property, and county resources. Also included in the resolution were specific requests to state lawmakers to create statewide guidelines on data centers. This comes after nearby Missouri City and Fort Bend County recently passed its own new zoning regulations for similar industrial facilities. Taking a look at sports. Well, the Astros are in Anaheim. They finish up their 3-game visit. The Astros were bombed 10-1 in last night's loss. First pitch tonight is at 8:30. Checking your weather, it's going to be mostly cloudy today with a high of 91, a heat index of 101. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low of 77 degrees. Right now, mostly cloudy, 88 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Building a career is possible at Progressive Insurance, now offering virtual and hybrid employment opportunities with pathways for advancement. Learn more at careers.progressive.com.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous.
And not just Ernie Manous. I am honored to have Nicole Ellis sitting across from me today, or next to me as the setup usually is in this studio.
Hello, Ernie.
Hello there. It's good to have you here. Did you have fun? You made it through 1 hour.
I did. It's been a blast.
I heard a rumor you'll come back tomorrow, too.
Studies show I will be back tomorrow.
Studies show. We took a poll and found out. Speaking of taking a poll, today was the Would You Rather Wednesday. And we didn't even mention what it was. So if you were over in our chat group over on YouTube, you would have seen it. The question was, would you rather have a perfect memory or be able to forget anything you wanted to at will?
Oh, this is for me. I have to answer
Yeah,
this?
you have to answer it too.
I would like to forget anything I want to at will. That would be amazing. Think about what that would do for like stress levels if it were just gone. That would be amazing.
That's funny because, I'm perfect memory. I would much rather be able to remember everything than forget things.
You know what? But that's also what the internet is for.
Spoken like a true youngin' next to me here. No, I just have so much fear of forgetting things in life that it's bothersome to me that the thought that, and also I deal with dementia every day with my mom, that I always think, oh my God, if you just remember. And also we're informed by all the things that made us who we are today. And to forget those things, those moments.
Okay, you might be converting me.
Yeah, but you know what? We took the poll. And what was our results? 52% of you said forget anything at will. You're in the majority there. I'm the minority. Perfect memory, 48%.
I'd like to thank our trusted listeners for being with me on this one.
Yeah. Team Nicole, they won. Team Ernie, we're going to forget about it anyway. Let me tell you that every Wednesday we put a Would You Rather Wednesday question in our YouTube chat. So always remember to go to YouTube on Wednesdays and be part of it. We were talking about a more serious issue also in the top of the show today. We were talking about the Karmelo Anthony guilty murder verdict in the death of the 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, the track meet murder that happened last year. And we had a lot of comments about it. Brandon Arnold wrote in and said, "What matters in the distinction between murder and manslaughter is intent. If he intended to harm the victim, even in the heat of passion, it's murder."
Interesting.
Another comment we had from Sean Radigan was questioning the lawyer that called in and said the victim was unarmed, so deadly force is not allowed for self-defense. Packing a knife for your track meet is considered premeditation. I don't know the legalness of that, but okay. And then Bob's also puts up on YouTube, we can rationalize, understand, and sympathize with motivations, much like we do with other kids who lash out after being bullied. Murder is still murder. Sad story all around.
Yeah.
So if you have comments, thoughts, reactions to what we chat about on the show and any of our topics, feel free to continue to share them with us. 713-440-8870. Remember, you can also email those comments and thoughts to us. You know, maybe after the show you've thought a little bit about what we were talking about and you have a point you want to share with us. Just email them to us, talk@hellohouston.org. I have another comment that came in. You want to hear this one? Okay. The comment was, Nicole, welcome. What's one Houston spot or hidden gem that always feels like home no matter how much you've traveled?
Okay, I have one actually top of mind because I had lunch there yesterday. So when I was a youth and like needed to study somewhere, there's always like that little pocket of places in Montrose. And my favorite is still Brazil. So I go to Brazil honestly far more often than I'd like to admit because they have a salmon bowl that they change for the seasons. And it's gotten to a point where like they see me at lunch, they're like, hey, we'll be out in a second with it. Like they know. And it's like, I've been going there since I was literally a child, like studying for exams. So that's one that kind of, I'm trying to think of where else, but that's one that like tugs at my heartstrings. And I mean, of course, when I was in college, I went to college in New York, before I even went home, I would stop by Frenchie's to get chicken, like from the plane, like land, Frenchie's, then see my family.
Yeah. So Frenchie's was better than seeing your family.
I mean, both were important. And also, me with Frenchie's is better for my family than just me.
Would you bring it home?
Yeah, I mean,
then yeah,
I
you
would
can come visit me
arguably
when you
at
get
least
back in town.
finish half. Before. I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
before you
we're around the
got there.
corner, right?
Right, yeah, bring me some
Half of it will be
Frenchies.
gone by the time I got there, but you know.
Where in New York were you?
At Columbia in
New York
Manhattan.
City,
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Carvel's Ice Cream?
I'm not a big ice cream person. Sorry,
Well,
I hate to. I know.
I'm sorry,
we were
you're not
doing
gonna be back
so
tomorrow. Yeah,
well.
Our speed dating was going really well, and now I've got to send you away. I'm sorry. Anyway, we got a lot more on today's show between us, besides us just sharing our little stories with you. We're going to take a look at a really interesting case that's happening in Florida about Florida's lawsuit against OpenAI, and not just OpenAI, but the CEO of the company, and what that could mean. We're going to take a closer look at that. And also, Juneteenth, right around the corner, there is a wonderful film retrospective of documentary films that the Buffalo Soldiers Museum is going to be hosting. We're going to be talking with the documentarian behind those films and the museum itself coming up a little later in the show. But as always, time to begin with headlines. What have you got for me?
Well, today, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton opened an investigation into FIFA over allegations that soccer fans were misled about the location and quality of seats purchased for matches during the 2026 World Cup. Now, this comes just days before World Cup matches are set to begin. And Arlington and Houston are two of the tournament's host cities, and they're scheduled for their first matches on Sunday. Paxton announced the investigation Tuesday, saying the office received complaints from fans who claimed that seats they ultimately received didn't match up with the seats as they were represented when they purchased them. In a statement, Paxton said, "I will work to ensure that FIFA is engaging in ethical and honest business practices so that Texas fans are treated fairly." And he went on to say that sports have a unique power to bring people together, and FIFA must understand that Texans take their competition and their consumer rights seriously. According to the Attorney General's office, some fans purchased Category 1 tickets, expecting premium views of the field. Now, complaints allege that FIFA later changed seating maps, moving those seats into sections that had less desirable sightlines of the game. Paxton says the investigation will determine whether FIFA violated the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices by misrepresenting seat categories or locations during the sales process. Now, a FIFA spokesperson did not immediately respond to our request for comment here in the Texas newsroom on Tuesday, but I honestly want to hear from you all about what you think about the investigation and whether or not it's a political move. Call or text us at 713-440-8870.
Okay, I'm going to surprise myself with this answer. I will say I'm getting very tired of these attorney general investigations and lawsuits and all of this going on. A lot of it feels very much political theater. There is we'll talk about this in our next story. It's a very heated race for the Senate seat, which Ken Paxton is running for. And, he's going after these things, a man of the people. But I got to say, if we're being scammed, I don't care who goes after him. You shouldn't be scammed. I get very upset with ticket brokers and all the different ways that you can get tickets to things now when they are misrepresented. I'm happy that the AG's office is looking into this. I think if you have bought a prime seat expecting, and they're not cheap, and you have shelled, not even if they were cheap, it shouldn't matter, but you've shelled out this money with the expectation of being promised something. Not just you imagined it would be good because of the name of it. You saw seating maps and such, and it altered. Yes, go after him. I have no recourse in saying that,
I agree. I feel like we're in a really, Tickets and Ticketmaster and all of these other purveyors of seats for consumer experiences in this economy are not only under scrutiny, but a lot of people take issue with how tickets are being sold, how much they cost, and for where you're sitting during, what may be the only World Cup soccer match you experience in your life to change on a dime after also investing in, I think we have just over 500,000 people coming into the city. So I can see where that would be frustrating for people, and why I'm sure hearing that someone's looking into it, hearing the Attorney General is looking into it, may offer people some relief or some belief that, that accountability is involved here, that there's some accountability.
I'm sure there's an argument out there for the flip of it all to say, of all the problems we have in the state of Texas, to worry about the people that can afford to buy these high-end tickets may not get the perfect view that they need, that's beneath the power of the Attorney General, and that, there's more important issues he should be focusing his time and resources on. To that, I think I would say, but it sets a precedent. And it says in the state of Texas, if you're selling tickets to an event, they better represent what you're buying. And I think in everything else, we have consumer laws that say, what you advertise, if you don't get it, you have a valid argument to say, I was misled. So I agree with that in this one.
And even the statement of that sports have a unique power to bring people together, and also that Texans take competition seriously. I think he's right. Texans are a little intense when it comes to our games, our teams, and also as a cultural sort of cornerstone of how we all express our solidarity with, our love for being Texans. A lot of that, I feel like is infused into our sports and the representation of sort of our teams as who we are and our spaces. So I feel it too. I think, it's emotional more than it is, necessarily a part of all of the other things in Texas that could be addressed, right?
Yeah.
But it is also an emotion that we care about.
Well, consumers need to be protected. And so I think across the board, if this lawsuit helps remind folks what you advertise has to be what you deliver, I'm all for it. Let's find out what you think. 713-440-8870. Ted's on the line from Pearland. Ted, what are you thinking?
Hey, guys, I'm so excited about the World Cup. It's going to be awesome. Love the youth sports in Houston area. Soccer is amazing, but let me tell you one thing. I got a lot of tickets, and I got I got some tickets for the round of 32, which is a very expensive, great game. It's going to be Brazil versus Japan probably. And here's the deal. I put in an order for category 1. This is like either midsection, 300 level, or 100 level. They stuck me up in the rafters. And this is like, FIFA's got to pay out. They can't do that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you a quick question in there, Ted. When you say that this section 1 is either 300 level or 100 level, how did you know that was where those seats were supposed to be?
That is what the advertisement said when you purchased the tickets.
Did you see like a seating chart kind of thing that said it's in these sections and stuff? And then what they delivered to you was not that?
That's correct.
Wow. So you know from firsthand. So did you have any recourse? Were you able to reach back out to them and say, wait a minute, this isn't what I purchased. I purchased here. Have you gotten any kind of response?
Zero response from FIFA.
Wow.
On a total, I'm okay with I don't care who the Attorney General is, but as long as they go after FIFA, and they got to do what they got to make it right.
Yeah. You know, I want to say to you, though, Ted, when you started the call and said you got a lot of tickets, I was expecting it's going to be, so would you guys like to come to the game? I was kind of hoping that's what you're going to do with a lot of those tickets.
Well, you know what I was going to say? I was going to say, Ted, I am so sorry that this happened to you, but also you seem like a vibe, and I feel like the people that get to sit next to you wherever you're seated are going to have the time of their lives because you seem like you are very ready for this moment.
Let's do it.
Ted, thank you very much for calling in. What do you think? 713-440-8870. Michael's on the line from Westgate. Michael, what are you thinking?
Hi, Ernie. You may be in luck. Look, I'm a soccer fan from the time I could walk. I grew up in Europe. And to give you an idea what the ticket prices, how outrageous there are, I saw Scotland, Brazil in the 1982 World Cup in Spain, and it cost me $4, just to give you an idea. Now, the issue is this. Since now they're using demand ticketing, that is, the prices rise and fall depending on, how much demand there is for a certain game, I will bet that, and this is, Ernie, why you're probably in luck, that in the major stadiums, they're not going to sell out at all. And what's going to happen is a couple of days or maybe the day of the event, they'll drastically reduce ticket prices. As in the recent World Clubs Championship, the champion of Saudi Arabia was playing Chelsea for $10.13. So it's quite likely if you're patient and you choose your games carefully, you might be able to go and get a ticket. I can't tell you how good or bad it's going to be for a rather modest price if you look right before the game at the particular stadium, especially if it's a large venue, because some of these games are going to be very hard to sell out because this time there's 48 teams. Many of them are marginal. I mean, when I was a kid, the World Cup was 16 teams and 4 groups of 4, and that was it. So, if you don't have a ticket and all that and you want to go to a game, just keep an eye on the big stadia and who's playing. And, if you go see a game between two let's say, unfavored team, but hey, at least you've seen a World Cup game. So.
Michael, I love what you have to say. I love your spirit too. I really wish and I would love if we went back to 82 pricing. I loved that idea.
What's even better, I bought it the day of the match on the street in Sevilla from a regular vendor, and my then wife and I went, and again it was 240 pesetas, which was $60 was $4, and so the both of us were in the stadium that afternoon.
Michael, I get the feeling you have lots of stories to share. Call us back again. I love hearing from you. 713-440-8870. Let's grab Robert from Sugarland. Robert, what's on your mind?
Yeah, well, this guy Patchen, he's putting on a show, a political show, and I'll tell you why. Because this is a non-issue for a lot of us. The number one issue is why is he allowing him and Greg Abbott? Why are they allowing for the appraisal district to run software that's configured wrong so that the everyone's houses are appraised for a lot more? Mm-hmm. And this is a scandal nobody's bringing up. And he can put us up to it, and he won't do it. All of our taxes are extremely high because they configured the software at HCAD so that everyone's houses can be appraised for way more than what they're worth. So if you bought a house like 7 years ago for $185,000 or $200,000, now it's worth $400,000 according to HCAD, to the appraisal district. So now they can charge you more taxes. Guess what? That's going on here in Houston. It's going on in Conroe. It's going on in Dallas. It's going on everywhere. And they won't do anything about it. Him, Paxson, that guy's a crook. And I don't know if he's getting paid under the table to let this happen. But him and Greg Abbott, they're doing it. If you don't believe me, go into Real Estate Mindset and look at all the data. It's
Robert,
all right there,
we're timing out in this segment. I'm going to thank you for calling. I'm going to share another comment that came in that kind of is aligned with what you had just said. It's a text came to us that I think it's very rich, but Ken Paxton is talking about honest business practices. And yes, there are kids in the state of Texas that are not having lunch because of cutbacks in food programs. I think this time and money could be better spent. I think there's some feelings about that maybe putting Ken Paxton's attention on this particular issue may not be the best use of his time. I think that's also what Robert was kind of saying. There are other things that should be being looked into. I'll end it with, again, where I kind of started with it is if it in fact changes the way tickets are sold and that there is a guarantee that what you put your money on the line for is what you get, that it benefits all people in the state, regardless of those that can afford to go to World Cup or even those who wait till the last minute to buy a ticket cheap, as one of our callers suggested. Guess what?
What?
Out of time on that segment.
Oof.
So we thank you all for your comments, for your thoughts at 713-440-8870. Remember, you can continue to text or to call us on that topic. But we've got to move on because we're going to talk AI and a lawsuit targeting not just AI, but also the CEO of the company. We'll find out more as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
On June 24th.
Houston Matters highlights the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston, and we do it live on the air weekday mornings at 9 on News 88.7. But we know you're not always available then to listen, so subscribe to our podcast wherever you get yours, or find each day's program to stream online at your leisure at houstonpublicmedia.org. And reach out with questions or comments anytime. Email us at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering electricity plans backed by 100% renewable energy for Texas homes and businesses. Learn more about renewable energy options at chariotenergy.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, presenting the Juneteenth celebration at Bayou Bend. Guests are invited to a family-centered program in honor of the Juneteenth holiday, June 14th. More at mfah.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Nicole Ellis.
So last week, the state of Florida filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, alleging the company concealed serious risks associated with ChatGPT, including concerns about safety, self-harm, and criminal misuse. To help us understand the legal issues at stake and what this could mean for the future of AI regulation, we're joined by Nikolas Guggenberger, Assistant Professor of Law at the University of Houston Law Center. Nikolas, welcome to Hello Houston. And if you would like to join the conversation, call or text us at 713-440-8870. How are you doing, Nikolas?
I'm great, thank you, and thanks for having me.
So can you explain to us what's at stake here? What is Florida suing for, and how do we get to this moment?
Florida is making several claims here. Florida is claiming that the company that runs ChatGPT, which is OpenAI, and personally, Sam Altman, have misled the public about the risks of the products that they're offering online, and that those products are much, much more dangerous than the company has made users and the public believe. I think that's one big allegation. The other big allegation is that irrespective of whether they did or failed to warn the public, their products are just inherently dangerous because they provide dangerous information to individuals who might be in dire situations, in doing so, that the company has contributed to real tragedies like the shooting at FSU, tragedies like suicide committed by, among others, minors.
Do you have to be able to prove that there was knowledge of the behavior that AI could exhibit to be held liable?
So on the side of, so both are sued, right? Sam Altman personally, as well as the company OpenAI. On the to start with a sort of easier part of the question, as it relates to the allegations against Sam Altman personally, yes, they would need to prove that Sam Altman personally knew about the potential threats, and that he directed the development of these tools despite these threats. When it comes to the liability of the company, it is really a question of the legal basis that you make your claim upon, whether you want to make a torts claim, where general negligence would be sufficient, or whether you would whether you try to make claims that potentially go beyond that. But generally speaking, negligence, that means they should have known, is sufficient.
So this also comes on the heels of, a case where Sam Altman, ChatGPT, and Elon Musk were going head to head in court. And we learned a lot about both of their sort of personal characters and characters as titans in wielding this technology. Will what we learned about Sam Altman play a role in what happens and plays out in this one?
That's hard to say, because the case where Sam Altman and Elon Musk were feuding was really about something else. Mm-hmm. It was about the company's structure and the company's commitment to being a nonprofit versus being a sort of regular corporation to make money. Now, what we could learn from the other case is we could learn something about the general vibes at the company. That is to say, how ruthlessly is profit pursued? Because one of the arguments that Florida is making here in its complaint is to say that they pushed aside concerns that the public had, as well as concerns that were articulated within the company in pursuit of profit, in pursuit of becoming the dominant player in AI. And so what this litigation might be borrowing from is stuff that has been discovered in the litigation between Elon Musk and Sam Altman as it pertains to the question on how focused the company is or was on profit seeking over other potential goals.
If OpenAI is found liable for this, does that mean all AI companies are?
No, I don't think one could say that. What it does, it opens the door for liability as a legal matter. It would establish several things. It would establish, one, that general product liability claims can be made against AI companies that is contested. They are arguing that they're a service and information service provider to which general product liability rules would not apply. Florida is making the argument that no, they're just providing a product like any other corporation company that provides and sells a product. So that's a big thing, a big hurdle. The other things that are to be decided is whether this liability exemption in Section 230, which usually insulates online platforms for user-generated content, applies to AI companies or not. And the third and equally big hurdle is whether or not any of the things that AI companies provide is First Amendment protected. Mm-hmm. And so those are all pretty substantial hurdles to liability. If this case overcomes those, well, then you have a clear path to go after all sorts of other AI companies. But that's not to say that each of them is liable, because maybe they have put in place procedures and have followed safety protocols that would insulate them against product liability claims or unfair and deceptive practices claims.
Let me take it to a simple, for my head, a simple way to look at this and tell me where I'm wrong in even making this analogy. But I think to myself of gun manufacturers. Mm-hmm. They manufacture a gun. Everyone knows a gun can be used for violent behavior. It seems in our culture we put that on the user of the gun. Mm-hmm. So we create AI. It can have harmful things. We put that use on the user. Mm-hmm. Where am I wrong?
I think there are two things to be said. So in general, you're not wrong at all. It's just that with gun manufacturers, we have passed specific laws that insulate them from liability that they would otherwise be exposed to.
Those don't automatically apply to other industry?
That's gun maker specific regulation that insulates gun makers from liability. Otherwise, we would see a ton of regulation, a ton of litigation, where people would make the argument that you, gun manufacturer, manufactured a gun that is meant to be used in a certain way, and you should have known that this person is dangerous. We would see those claims all the time, but there is specific statutory legislation that cuts that chain. Now, that means that for those types of products, a claim like that would actually be, well, maybe pretty easy to make in many instances in which they should have known. Now, the second thing is that we usually distinguish between general purpose tools and tools that are to be used in a specific manner and where the manufacturer should at least have known that they will be used in this specific manner. So if I sell, say, a baseball bat, it's a general purpose tool, usually used to play baseball. But of course, it can be applied in very malicious manners, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not to say that every manufacturer of baseball bats now has to go around and conduct background checks on people buying baseball bats. Why? Because the ordinary general use of this tool or instrument is perfectly harmless. That's not the case if I were to sell a set to manufacture explosives, right? Mm-hmm. Why? Because I at least should have known that this will be used in a certain way, in a certain illicit way. And that's how we usually distinguish.
Could this backfire then, this lawsuit, by pushing forward regulations on AI similar to what the gun industry has, especially with the prevailing atmosphere at the federal level right now?
It could. I mean, if a lawsuit like this goes through, I'm sure there will be lobbying pressure to insulate AI companies from liability. But I mean, for that, Congress would need to become active. I mean, I'm sure that they would be willing to invest billions of dollars in lobbying and campaign finance expenses and so on. But of course, that's not a given. I would predict that there's huge public backlash against insulating AI companies from liability, especially when it comes to minors. And I think that's the important point to add here. And this is maybe the reason why the chances of Florida's lawsuit here are quite substantial, and because we're talking about minors.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about, there's this piece with AI that kind of runs counter to what Ernie was saying, where it talks back to you, where it may suggest to you what you do next, and that act might be criminal. How does this sort of dynamic relationship play into how exposed OpenAI is in this lawsuit?
Again, I think it's very important to distinguish between minors and adults. With respect to adults, we generally assume that information can be provided to them, and it's upon them to act on that information. Right? Like you can check out a book from a library, and that book might describe very dark thoughts. That book might contain information that can be used in illicit ways. I don't know, describing a fraudulent scheme, describing violent crime. Many books do, right?
Well, there was a book years ago, was it Final Exit, that told you how to commit suicide, different ways you could end your life.
And generally, we think that's not an issue. What's different here, I think, are two things. One is that these large language model applications, ChatGPT and others, they're designed to create an atmosphere of intimacy. That is different from just presenting information, right? And the second one is the specific point of providing these tools to minors, to people where those companies should have known that they are particularly vulnerable and particularly receptive.
Do we have evidence that you know of or has been presented or talked about yet that says that there was this, poor choice of words, smoking gun, that there is something beyond the presupposition that they should have known or that the company should know, something that says, we know this is dangerous, let's proceed anyway?
So we have to be a bit careful because so far we only know about the complaint, right? Like we haven't seen OpenAI's response to that. But the complaint alleges or makes the argument that OpenAI internally knew that their tools were dangerous and that their tools would pose these kinds of threats, and nevertheless, in pursuit of profit, took shortcuts, didn't fix those security holes.
So it's not just the knowledge of the possibility, but it's then the reaction to that knowledge.
Yes, they should have known, according to the complaint. They did know about these security threats, and despite that, I should always add, the complaint argues they didn't take action.
Is there an alternate side that you see in all of this? Because we don't know the reaction of OpenAI fully, that says, no, we did take all these precautions. We put this out here. It's no different than a Twitter or a Facebook where people share their thoughts and talks and people look things up. It's no different than Googling something or searching, because that's all we are, is just a glorified search engine looking for common responses and reactions.
It's exactly the argument that OpenAI, not in court so far, but in public, has made and will likely make in court. So what they're saying is they're already deploying technology that detects in a probabilistic manner whether you're a minor, and if they do detect that you're a minor user, that they transition you into a safer environment. That's like an untechnical description of what they claim about their product. Now, whether that's true or not, that's something I can't tell you. I can also not tell you whether the precautions that are taken in these protected environments for minor, whether they're deemed to be sufficient. That's for the court, potentially for a jury to decide, and that goes beyond what I have insights into.
Could the argument be made that what AI is presenting to you as it answers a question, arguably even the suggestion of follow-up recommendations of what to do, that is because it is sort of from a database of text or things created by people, that's user generated or contributed information?
So what OpenAI already says is that they provide, if they detect, for example, that you have suicidal thoughts, that they would recommend that their tools recommend that you seek help, that you contact the suicide hotline, then you call 988 or so, and so I think this raises a couple factual questions, which is, are those tools reliable? Right? Do they really do that? Is it sufficient to do that? Say, if you market and deploy your tools in ways that give, say, 11-year-old kids access to it, is it sufficient to just direct them to a hotline, but then go on and discuss, which they apparently did, or which their agent apparently did, discuss methods of suicide? I doubt that. I doubt that you can just fall back on saying, well, every single one of our chats just included a link to a suicide hotline. I don't think that suffices, especially when interfacing with kids.
And I know we're running out of time, but I'm just curious at this point, do we sufficiently know publicly how AI works, or will a case like this open up some locked doors in showing us how this works, how much actually they have still control over what it produces as responses, and how much is it now functioning on its own?
Yeah. We have indications on how it works, but I think it's fair to say that not all results are predictable. That means that there, at the moment, is still, and maybe there will for a long time be, an element of a black box where even the companies themselves cannot reliably predict the outcome of a query in every individual case.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating topic, and watching it play out will be even more interesting. Nikolas, I hope you'll come back and help us through it as we learn more. I have a funny feeling I'm going to find out there's just some guy sitting in a room with a Google and he's checking things and he's typing in these answers for you, and all of this was for naught. Anyway, Nikolas Guggenberger is an assistant professor of law at the University of Houston Law Center. Always a pleasure to have you here with us, Nikolas.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. Coming up, we're going to shift gears over to Juneteenth on the screen. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
7 o'clock. On the next Fresh Air, actor Josh O'Connor. He won an Emmy playing a young Prince Charles in The Crown. Now he's the lead in Steven Spielberg's new film Disclosure Day. We'll talk about his approach in this new blockbuster and Spielberg's decades-long exploration of the idea that aliens are among us. Join us. You can listen to Fresh Air. It's on tonight at 8 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8 at 7, Nature presents Museum Alive with David Attenborough. Then at 8, Nova presents Alaskan Dinosaurs, followed at 9 by Secrets of the Dead. Tonight on TV 8.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House presenting Beware of Short Texans, starring Jaston Williams of Greater Tuna. The performance includes stories and characters drawn from Texas life and theater. July 11th, tickets at thegrand.com.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Nicole Ellis.
So this Saturday, ahead of Juneteenth next week, the Buffalo Soldier National Museum is inviting Houstonians to attend a special film screening at Post Houston called Juneteenth on Screen, Stories of Freedom. Featuring award-winning documentarian Gordon S. Williams, the screening will consist of short documentaries that highlight the joy, resilience, and struggles of Black communities in Texas, while also focusing on the importance of preserving and amplifying the histories and legacies that even to this day continue to define what freedom means to us. So to tell us more about the screening, we're joined by award-winning documentarian Gordon S. Williams and Dr. Michelle Tovar, Director of Education and Outreach at the Buffalo Soldier National Museum. Gordon, Dr. Tovar, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
First thing I just want to point out before we get to the whole conversation is this is not happening at the Buffalo Soldiers Museum.
No, correct. Yeah, this is at Post Houston.
Because you guys are doing some work on the museum.
We are renovating right now.
But you're still sharing with the
yes,
community.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
I have a confession. I actually have not been to the Buffalo Soldiers Museum.
Uh-oh.
I know. I'm like, you should all be shaming me.
We are.
So tell us about what's happening there and what
Sure.
to expect to see, when it reopens.
Yes, so the museum has been open for 25 years, ma'am, so you need to make your way
I know.
there.
Right. No excuses.
No.
Shame me.
But we are undergoing renovations at this moment, and the museum is going to be transforming its space into be a more inclusive space, right? Not just to our English-speaking audiences, but also our Spanish-speaking audiences. It will be bilingual, and we'll have new exhibits up. We're going to have more interactive experiences for our students that come through field trips, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we're going to open Veterans Day in November.
Well, talking about that, Gordon, the joy and the art of making documentaries is the opportunity to cross over boundaries and barriers and to share stories with the community as a whole. When you're making these films, when you sit down with these stories, do you think of audience first or do you think of the narrative first and hope the audience finds it?
I'm always thinking about the story. Mm-hmm. The narrative, but also being present while I'm documenting what I'm seeing around me.
Okay.
I have to be aware of the emotions, the feelings, the environment. In these documentaries, you see people that love their community. They love their families. Community just rings out through all of this work. And I hope people come to the screening and they see that and they're inspired and they think about how their family and their community plays a role in their life and the importance of sharing those stories.
Well, it's fascinating because to me, whenever a story is well told, it doesn't matter the subject matter necessarily. When a story is engaging, people want to learn from it. And it's, as opposed to when we think of a museum with exhibits and presentation, film has such an intimate ability to reach people.
Indeed. And I want to be the type of creative that's creating content that touches the heart.
Yeah.
I feel like there's also a kind of, a concern about how you are portraying or representing either the community or the holiday. What are some of the key takeaways you want viewers to have when they, immerse themselves in these films?
Community, family, love, but also these stories are a part of the narrative that's America 250. Right. And sometimes these stories are not seen as such. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to bring those stories. And I want to thank the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum for giving these stories a platform so people can see these people in these communities.
Mm-hmm. Do you meet resistance from folks, from audiences who have been brought up with maybe a different narrative of understanding history, and that there's a challenge there to say, wait, open your eyes. There's more to our history than we may think we know.
Well, as a content creative filmmaker, I want to create content that's universal. Mm-hmm. So no matter what, everyone has that connection with family and community. Right. That's universal. They Will Talk About Us, the Charlton Pollard documentary, is about a Black neighborhood in Beaumont. After that screening, I've had people of other races saying that they wish they could have lived in that neighborhood and went to Charlton Pollard High School. So there's something universal in telling these stories, and that's what we want to focus on.
Tell me a little bit about what folks are going to see. You mentioned one of the films. What else do you have for us?
The Charlton Pollard documentary. We also have a story about a preservationist in Dabney Hill, which is right outside of College Station, Gloria Smith. The work that she's putting in to preserve that community and a Masonic lodge and a church there. So again, wanting to preserve the history of the Texas Freedom Colony. Also Shankleville. It is a town in East Texas, or community, that it starts with a love story of formerly enslaved people that were separated. The husband went to find the wife in East Texas, and after emancipation, they bought 4,000 leagues of land, created a community. And this community comes back every year to celebrate what their ancestors have established.
Even just hearing about this, it takes me back to my filmmaking days and like the love of being in the field. And so I'm curious to hear, like, how do you find these stories? Where are you, like, tell us kind of the back end of how you come across this and then, turn it into, weave it all into a film.
It varies. For the Cleveland documentary about Juneteenth in 2021 and Shankleville, I just took a camera. Didn't know exactly what I was walking into, but had that presence of mind to just talk to people and capture everything. And when I got back and looked at the footage, I was like, there's a story here.
Yeah.
I love that.
Michelle, what brought Gordon to your attention that this was something we needed to be doing and on Juneteenth?
Yes, so I ran across one of his presentations at a conference recently, right? And because our museum is known as a military museum, we're actually more than that. And we want to talk about the legacy of Black history, the Black experience. And when I saw Shankleville specifically, and I saw the way the audience reacted and started to share their own stories, their own narratives, their own experiences, I felt like this is such a great opportunity to bring his stories, his work, right, to our museum to share it with our community. I feel like a lot of the people that visit our space can connect, yes, to the veteran history, to the military history, but there's a deeper history there, right? And it's not just a Black story. It's a story, as Gordon mentioned, a universal story. Because one of our next events is also going to be about the Afro-Mexican experience of Juneteenth, right? And I think that's just a great way for people to see that this is not just for a Black community. It's for all of Houston's communities, right?
Yeah. There are lots of, though, different storytellers out there. What do you find in Gordon's work that makes it special?
I think he has a lot of heart. And I think it's so important to see how much he has invested in the families, in the stories. In Beaumont specifically, there's a poem that's by Langston Hughes from from Detroit to Beaumont, I believe, right? It's about the race rights. It's a very strong poem, right, that a lot of students should be aware of. And that history, that poem reminded me of the work that you're doing, right? How important it is for people to see that history through your films, because I think it's an element that's missing in our classrooms, right? Since it's missing in our museums. So if students have an opportunity to learn from filmmaking, I think that's such a great way to bring that arts into the spaces, right?
When you talk about histories, too, and you talk about how long the museum has been around,
yes.
I'm curious, have you noticed, and of course, looking at you, I know you haven't been there from the beginning.
No.
But do you see different challenges today in telling the story than maybe the museum had when it started?
Definitely. I think now we are facing a little bit more of censorship, right, in our space. And I think with the team that we have, our CEO, giving us a lot of liberty to work on the narrative, to teach truth, right? That's the important part, is that we are teaching honest history. We're not going to overlook and be shy. We're going to be honest and put it out there. And yes, it's going to make people uncomfortable.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about the nexus of the Buffalo Soldier Museum and Juneteenth. I feel like there's so many stories where, people can trace their great-great-great-grandmother can tell you like where they were when Juneteenth happened.
Right, exactly. So because we're hosting this at Post, the film, and an exhibition we have there, it's called Terms and Conditions, which focuses on, yes, the history through the United States Colored Troops experience, but it's also an art exhibition where we have contemporary artists who have done an interpretation of what liberation and emancipation means to them. So we thought combining those mediums, right? Of course, you have the interpretive experience, you have the art through the different media, but then we were missing the element of film. And you're right. People can look at these different types of forms and start thinking about their own histories and finding ways to interpret it themselves, right? I think one of the things that we emphasize a lot at the museum is oral histories and talking to our family members, right? Our elders. Sometimes we're like, oh, Grandma, I'll be here forever. Not necessarily, right? We have to take an opportunity to ask those questions. And I think that is a great example in Gordon's work, right? When I saw those families, that intergenerational work, like experience in his work, it was such a great way to show that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be here forever. I'm hearing the music. We are out of time on today's show. Gordon S. Williams is an award-winning documentarian, and Dr. Michelle Tovar is the Director of Education Outreach at the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum. Yes. Thank you both for coming in and sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Such a fascinating conversation.
Juneteenth on Screen, Stories of Freedom will take place at the Post Houston on Saturday, June 13th at 1 p.m. For more information, visit posttx.htx.com. And that brings us to the end of the show so quickly. Nicole, you going to come back tomorrow?
I think I might come hang out with you tomorrow.
Well, good, because we got a great show tomorrow. I hope you'll all rejoin us for that, too, right here on Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altine, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Metro, proud sponsor of Hello Houston with Ernie Manous. Heard Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. on News 88.7.
Your NPR station, KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, maker of MATLAB